Hello, this is Alan from SQL Plus, and in this video, I'm going to guide you through the setup and installation process and then show you how to build and test your first data service. The source code for the project I am working in is available on GitHub, and as always, I encourage you to browse that repo for some additional tips and tricks to fully leverage these tools. So let's get you set up. Head over to SQL Plus. Click on the documentation link, then follow the link to installation. There are step-by-step instructions for installing the code snippets in both Management Studio and Visual Studio, as well as instructions for installing the Visual Studio extension. Code snippets aren't required, but they do make things easier, so let's install them. Click on the code snippets download link, navigate to the zip file, extract it, and I prefer to keep my code snippets together in a convenient location. I have a snippets folder on my C drive for that purpose, so I'll copy it there. Now open up SQL Server Management Studio, click on Tools, and then select Code Snippets Manager. On the Code Snippets Manager dialog, click Add. In the Code Snippets Directory dialog, navigate to the plus folder you just extracted, and click Select Folder. Finally, click OK on the Code Snippets Manager dialog to complete the installation. You should now be able to right-click in a query window, choose Insert Snippet, pick the plus folder, and have access to the snippets. If you prefer to use SQL queries instead of database procedures, you want to install the snippets in Visual Studio. To do that, open up Visual Studio, click on Tools, and then select Code Snippets Manager. On the Code Snippets Manager dialog, be sure to select Microsoft SQL Server Data Tools in the language dropdown. Then click Add. In the Code Snippets Directory dialog, navigate to the plus folder that you just extracted and click Select Folder. Finally, click OK on the Code Snippets Manager dialog to complete the installation. You should now be able to right-click in a file with a .SQL extension, choose Insert Snippet, pick the plus folder, and access all the snippets. To install the code generator, click the link for the Visual Studio extension, click on the Download button, and click the downloaded file to launch the installer. When the Visix installer opens, click the Install button and let the installer do its job. Once the installer completes, you can click the Finish button to close the installer, and that's it. You're ready to start building data services. So let's do that. Since our aim is to focus on the essential concepts of SQL Plus and avoid unnecessary details that could impede our progress, we're going to use a very simple database. The script for this database is in the repo I mentioned earlier and has two tables, a customer table and a customer type table. There are no nullable columns, and the customer ID column is the primary key and an identity column. We have a foreign key reference on the customer type ID, and we also have a unique index on the email column. The task at hand is to insert a customer into the customer table, and to do that, we've created a stored procedure named customer insert, which inserts a customer record based on the parameters we pass in, and subsequently sets the customer ID out parameter to the value of the new identity before exiting. So the first thing we need to do to make this a service is add the SQL Plus routine tag. We access our snippets and pick the routine tag, which does not return a result set, which translates to a non-query call. We then add a comment and author name, and that's it. Execute our statement here, and we can head over to Visual Studio to build our service. For this first example, we are going to create a simple console application. Right-click on the Solution Explorer, choose Add, New Project, and choose Console App for the project type. Let's name our project First Service, and I'll accept the default of .NET 6 for the framework. To generate our data service, right-click on our new project and choose SQL Plus Build from the menu. The first step is to provide a connection string that points to our source database for the build. I always prefer to do development on a local database instance. I'll set my initial catalog to the Getting Started database. And since I am running local, I can use integrated security. Now we can click Connect and allow SQL Plus access to the database. Once the connection is established, the UI will move to the Configure Routines area. And here you will see all the routines in our database that have a SQL Plus routine tag, grouped by the schema that they exist in. In this case, there is only one. If you're new to the world of C#, namespaces in C# are comparable to schemas in a database, in that they group units of functionality together. In the SQL Plus world, each namespace will create a folder structure that hosts the models and services that you have assigned to that namespace. For this example, I'll just leave the namespace the default value. From here, we can jump to the build screen and run the builder, and our services are done. So there are a couple of things we need to do yet. When you run the builder, it saves the last configuration, including the database connection. If you are using source control, it's a good idea to add that file to the git ignore files. Just right-click and choose Git, Ignore, and Untrack Item. Also, SQL Plus requires ADO.NET, so we need to bring in a NuGet package. Right-click, choose Manage NuGet Packages, click Browse, and search for SQL Client. Choose the one for system.data.sql client, click Install, and accept the license agreement. At this point, you should be able to build your project without any errors. So let's explore our new customer insert service. If we open this file, you can see we have a public method, which by convention is the name of the procedure customer insert. It takes a single argument, which by convention is the service name followed by input. If we go to that definition, you see that all the input parameters are now properties of this object. Our service returns an output object, which by convention is the service name followed by output. And that object encapsulates any out parameters, the return value, and if there were any result sets, they would be nested here as well. In this case, our service is a non-query service, so there are no result sets. So let's write the code to call our service. We want to bring in the namespaces for our service and the models. We create our service using the constructor that takes a connection string, which we can copy and paste from our database connection file. We create the input object for our service, which has two constructors, an empty one and a parameterized one. So you can use the one you prefer. The more I work with nullable types, the more I appreciate having the parameterized ones. We create a variable to capture the output object from our service and call our service, passing it the input. After our service executes, we will write the output.customer_ID to the console. If we run our application, we see our new customer ID, and if we go to Management Studio, we can select from that table and see the new record that was inserted as a result of executing our service. So there you have it. We've managed to get through the entire process of installing the tools and building our first service. However, there are quite a few things that can go wrong with our service. For instance, if we just run this again, we get an error because we have a unique index on our email column. We would also get errors if we try inserting null values or violate our foreign key constraint. And yes, we could write code to handle all those cases, but there is a much more elegant way to accomplish this through the use of semantic tags, which we will do in the next video. Until then, this is Alan from SQL Plus. Thanks for tuning in, and have a great day.